The Dallas Mavericks move to 13-5 in their last 18 games as they get a 105-89 win over the Los Angeles Clippers. This is the gray area right here on Kevin Gray Sports here on YouTube. You can follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Kevin Gray Sports. You can also make sure you hit that subscribe button right here for Kevin Gray Sports on YouTube. Good to be back with you once again. We've been off for a little bit, but good to be back with you. Kevin Gray, of course, of 105.3 The Fan. Luka Doncic put on a spectacular performance, a 42.9 assist performance, was a plus 29 in the plus-minus category as the Dallas Mavericks get that 105-89 win to win the season series against Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, and the Los Angeles Clippers. I asked Luka Doncic after the basketball game, what is it about the Los Angeles Clippers that brings out the best in him after having some big moments against his team in the past, about what it is to play against the Clippers. Here's what Luka Doncic had to say after the basketball game. Hey, Luka, obviously you've had some big moments against this basketball team in the past. What is it about the Clippers that seems to bring out the best of you when you get together with Paul George and Kawhi Leonard and these guys each time you play?
I mean, they're a really good defensive team, They have really amazing defenders, so it's kind of tough. But, I think these past two games were like playoffs, when you play hard, and that's how we got to be ready for the playoffs if we make it.
So Luka Doncic understanding a playoff-like atmosphere in the last two games at the American Airlines Center, where he had to put on his best performance to allow his Mavericks team to split this home-and-home series that they had against the Los Angeles Clippers, with a game on Monday and then a game on Wednesday, splitting those two games after the Los Angeles Clippers got the first win in Game 1 of this home mini-series, if you will. The Los Angeles Clippers falling, though, to the Dallas Mavericks 105-89 in the second game. The Dallas Mavericks got really good contributions from Maxi Kleber and also from a guy in Josh Richardson. Josh Richardson was absolutely spectacular in this basketball game, had 14 points, had 3 steals, had a block, really set the tone on the defensive end of the floor for this Dallas Mavericks basketball team. I asked Josh Richardson after the game was over with what kind of mentality that he was trying to set, knowing that they needed to get this game, not just for the splitting of this series, but more importantly, the playoff atmosphere that it seemed like was inside the American Airlines Center over these last couple games. Here's what Josh Richardson had to say after the game was over with. Hey, Josh, it seemed like you wanted to set the tone tonight, especially on the defensive end of the floor. Can you talk about the mentality that you came out with, and obviously culminating that with winning the defensive belt tonight for the game?
I felt like I didn't have enough energy last game, and I feel like they kind of played harder than us last game. And, from the jump, I wanted to kind of send a message and let them know it wasn't going to be easy tonight.
So Josh Richardson stating that he wanted to set a mentality and a tone that really got his team focused early, especially on the defensive end. This is a Mavs team that had 7 steals and 7 blocks in this basketball game. Really wanted to ensure that they were setting the tone on both the offensive and defensive ends of the basketball. This is a team in the Dallas Mavericks that also shot nearly over 44% from the three-point line, going 15 of 34 from the three-point line, holding, though, the Los Angeles Clippers only 9 of 32 from the three-point line, a 28% clip. Also in this basketball game, only holding them to 11 free throws in this game. The Clippers shot 42% from the field also. After you saw a game in the first game of this mini-series where the Clippers had 7 guys in double figures, tons of balance in terms of that first game of this series, you saw the Mavericks come out with much more energy, much more aggression to start off this basketball game to ensure that they were the ones setting the tone throughout this game. And as I mentioned, now 13-5 in the last 18 basketball games have now put themselves in a position where they are going to carry some momentum now going on the road for a couple of games against the Portland Trail Blazers after they were able to get a nice win in Denver on the road. Then come back to the American Airlines Center, split the games against the Los Angeles Clippers, now go on to take on Damian Lillard, the best clutch player in the entire NBA, and have an opportunity to try and continue to gain ground in the Western Conference. The Dallas Mavericks still sit in that precarious 8th seed where they are trying to get inside the top 6, where they are not in the play-in tournament to try and get inside of the Western Conference playoffs. It's going to be important for them to continue to build momentum like this against playoff teams, because we saw in this series, this mini-series, if you will, especially in the first game at times it felt like the Mavericks did not have the necessary depth in personnel to be able to compete with a Los Angeles Clipper basketball team. They were much better in this game because the desire, the fight, and the effort of the Mavericks seemed to be there from the outset of this basketball game, which is extremely important against a Los Angeles Clipper basketball team. As Luka mentioned, a very good defensive basketball team that likes to get out after you and be able to put pressure on you on the perimeter. You saw them at times in this mini-series put smaller guys on Kristaps Porzingis. Rick Carlisle mentioning after this game that Kristaps Porzingis had a nice floor game, mixing the pops, mixing the drives, doing the little things and making timely plays to ensure that the Mavericks were able to come out of this series split with a split in this particular series. Other guys like Maxi Kleber were very good in this basketball game. 12 points was a plus 24 in the plus-minus category. After not playing well in game one of this mini-series, Maxi Kleber came back with a much better effort in this game, going 4 of 8 from the field, 2 of 5 from the three-point line. Tim Hardaway had a strong second quarter to really help this Mavericks team stay in the basketball game, but it was the shot making and the creativity of Luka Doncic throughout this basketball game that was absolutely spectacular. The step-back threes, the breaking of ankles of Paul George, who seems to have rent-free space, does Luka Doncic, inside of Paul George's head every time they get together. It seemed like Luka was just on another level tonight. He knew that he had to set the tone offensively, especially with the way that he shot the ball from the three-point line in this basketball game, going 6 of 11 from downtown, 16 of 28 overall from the field, 42 points, 9 assists to go along with another 6 rebounds. This is the kind of performance that when you saw these two teams get together in the playoffs, a really competitive series, obviously, with Kristaps Porzingis getting hurt in that series, but at the same time, this would be a fun 7-game series if these teams got together in the playoffs. You could tell that these are a couple of teams that don't necessarily like each other. Luka Doncic and Terrence Mann having words at one point. The referees allowing these two teams to play throughout the game. Questionable calls on both ends of the floor with respect to some of the physical nature of the basketball game, but at the same time, this was the kind of performance that, if you're a Mavs fan, gives you confidence about how the Mavericks can play against some of the better teams in the Western Conference. Yes, they still need to add some depth in terms of some perimeter scoring with the trade deadline 8 days away as we record this video here. The Dallas Mavericks still need to find themselves improving with some perimeter scoring, maybe some additional rebounding help with the guys like Andre Drummond and others who may be available in the buyout market, but at the same time may not necessarily be the best fit for the Dallas Mavericks. At times, this team struggles to rebound the basketball. Did not do so tonight, out-rebounding the Los Angeles Clippers 43-37. Did struggle in the paint. Ivica Zubac played really well inside the paint, had a lot of paint touches and dunks inside the paint in terms of giving up paint points, but at the same time, the Dallas Mavericks really shooting the ball well from the outside, especially from the three-point line, as I mentioned, shooting over 44% from the three-point line. You also got really good contributions, as I mentioned, from a Tim Hardaway Jr., who had 15 points in this game, had a really strong second quarter, really started to get some things going from the outside, knocking down some outside shots, really continuing to build his confidence. Tim Hardaway, kind of the Swiss Army knife for this team in terms of being asked to do different things on a night-in to night-out basis. This time, coming into the starting lineup in this basketball game, as Dorian Finney-Smith was out of this game due to the birth of his child. James Johnson did not play either. He was out of this game for personal reasons. So we will see what the Dallas Mavericks will do at the trade deadline, if anything. You already saw Mark Cuban earlier this week go on live with Ryan and Kelly and say that he is not trading Kristaps Porzingis. Kristaps Porzingis will remain a part of this basketball team going forward. He was a +9 in this game against the Clippers, had 11 points, struggled a little bit from the field, going 5 of 14. But as I mentioned, Rick Carlisle talking about the timely plays, the shot alteration, the defense, all the things that Kristaps Porzingis is able to do at 7'3", the unicorn we like to call him. He was able to do those things against the Los Angeles Clippers. Wes Iwundu in this game played well in spot minutes. Defensively, was able to hold and defend guys like Paul George and Kawhi Leonard and others to be able to help a defense that since the beginning of February has been much better in terms of defensive rating. A team that at one point was having about 103 to 105 defensive rating, one of the better defensive ratings in all of the NBA. So you're seeing what Rick Carlisle has talked about throughout this season. The upside that this team has remains on the defensive end of the basketball, and their ability to continue to be more consistent on the defensive end will allow this team to be much more consistent in games like this, where you're waiting for your offense offense to continue to go and to come about, but at the same time holding the Los Angeles Clippers to just 89 points with the likes of guys like Paul George, like Kawhi Leonard, like a Marcus Morris Sr., like a Reggie Jackson, and others who can really score the basketball. These are the kinds of performances that you want to see after you had a really nice performance on the road against the Denver Nuggets. You come back home, lose the first game of this mini-series to the Los Angeles Clippers, but then you were able to come out, defensive intensity, knocking the ball down from the three-point line, continuing to put pressure on the defense with Luka Doncic, his ability to create not just for himself, but for his teammates with the 9 assists that they had, and being able to really lock down defensively with the 7 steals and the 7 blocks that they had in this game. A really nice game overall for the Dallas Mavericks on both ends of the floor. They've played 2 really complete games against the Los Angeles Clippers. You remember the 51-point blowout in Los Angeles earlier this year. Another really solid basketball game on both ends of the floor with the defense, and obviously Luka Doncic with the spectacular scoring effort that he put forth tonight for the Dallas Mavericks. Again, a team that's now 13-5 in their last 18 basketball games, really pushing themselves to get into that top 6 seeding where they need to be so that they are not trying to fight for a playoff spot in that play-in tournament. But again, confidence wins on the road against the Denver Nuggets, a team that was in the Western Conference Finals a season ago. Confidence wins against a very deep Los Angeles Clipper basketball team that was smarting off the 51-point loss, came into your building in game 1 of this mini-series and handled their business. But then you come out in a playoff-like intensity. The crowd was into it and was rocking. You could tell that both teams understand the kind of playoff atmosphere and nature that both of these teams engage in when these two teams get together. This time, it was the Dallas Mavericks getting the better of the Los Angeles Clippers in this particular series. So overall, a very good win for the Dallas Mavericks as they head on the road on Friday and on Sunday to take on Damian Lillard and the Portland Trail Blazers before they travel to Minnesota to take on Karl-Anthony Towns and Anthony Edwards and the Minnesota Timberwolves before they come back home next Friday to take on the Indiana Pacers. So the Dallas Mavericks are going to be on the road for their next 3 basketball games, a 2-game set in Portland before traveling to Minnesota and then coming back home on March the 26th after the trade deadline is over with to take on the Indiana Pacers. But for now, the Dallas Mavericks get a 105-89 win over the Los Angeles Clippers, 13-5 in their last 18 ball games to move to 21-18 on the season. Luka Doncic, a spectacular 42-point night for the Dallas Mavericks. They go on the road to take on Dame Time and the Portland Trail Blazers on Friday and Sunday. You can follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Kevin Gray Sports. You can also make sure you hit that subscribe button for Kevin Gray Sports here on YouTube. And you can catch you on the weekends on 105 through the Fan with my partner, the two-time Hall of Famer, Chris Arnold. This has been another episode of The Gray Area. We'll talk to you later. Peace.